Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the brand new Netflix Transformers War for Cybertron Decepticon Sparkless Bot. So this is a very interesting entry in that it's not really an individual so much as, well, it's an army builder. Kind of like a sweep or, something along those lines. And this toy represents one of the several different undead Transformers that are encountered toward the end of the first season when Optimus and his Autobots are going to attempt to retrieve the Allspark, and these guys all rise up from the dead to stop them. And one of those body types they used was the Prowl or Barricade body type, so that's what we get here. Now this is being labeled as a Decepticon, and just despite the fact that he doesn't have any molding differences, seems to lean more heavily into being a Barricade redeco than a Smokescreen one, which kind of makes sense because Smokescreen wasn't in the Siege cartoon. So, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at the Sparkless Bot's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, and then we'll see this Sparkless robot in both its vehicle and robot modes. We're doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So our little zombie bot here comes in what is now your standard Wave 3 packaging for Deluxe classes. And you just see him front and center here. Weirdly, they have his legs like tabbed together, so he looks like he's, I don't know, got a pee or something. And you can see he's got this very interesting paint work going on that makes him look like a rusted old car. So that's really unique, really interesting. I like how that turned out. Here on the side, you get actually Barricade's artwork. In fact, like, you can tell it's still Barricade because they didn't completely color wash it, and you can still see the like tannish colored face that he has, and you make out what's supposed to be purple. So yeah, not the best job. They got kind of lazy here. On the back, you can see the Sparkless Bot in both the vehicle and robot modes. It takes 15 steps to transform, and he actually has a little city and rank badge there. I wonder if that's the same one that Barricade uses. I'm willing to bet it is. Because, I mean, really, this is just a dead husk of a robot. Shouldn't really have any kind of allegiance, but yeah, whatever. Still looks cool, and get a better idea of how that rust paint effect works there. And then here you get your Netflix version of the Kingdom side panel. Okay, here we get our instructions for our Sparkless Bot. And the render looks to be taken just straight off of Barricade's instructions, which is not very surprising. So we open this up. We get a little how-to on the shoulder cannon replacement. I didn't want to show you how to actually combine the two shoulder cannons to be a handgun, but you can still do that. And then just a quick transformation from robot to vehicle. And you can see they show here, he does come with the light bar that Barricade does, which is something I didn't really think about. So yeah, he is explicitly a Barricade redeco. You can't really call him a Smokescreen redeco because he lacks, the rifle and in place gets the light bar, so my bad there. But overall, instructions do their job. Much less detailed than the old Siege instructions, right? They don't have the whole layout of different, weapon names and all that, but I don't know how many people really cared about those, because it didn't last past Siege, unfortunately. Okay, now we get our first look at the vehicle mode for this zombie bot here. And, it's just a direct redeco of Barricade's vehicle mode, just done up in this very extensive rust and corrosion, paint scheme here. Kind of looks like one big Tampo or something just plastered across the whole body of the car. Of course, it leaves the windshield area and the light bar still done in the translucent plastic, as well as the wheels. Get a kind of dirty metal look on the guns here. And then on the underside, you get this kind of dull gray plastic, a darker gray, more medium, and then this almost greenish color that looks a lot like silver tarnishing there. So overall, pretty cool. I think it does the job very well. You'll see there are no faction symbols on this thing, despite being called a Decepticon, which, I guess kind of leaves it open to be whatever you want it to be, right? It could be a dead con, dead Autobot. Though, you know, if we're going by the packaging, I guess it's supposed to be a Decepticon, I guess. I don't think it really matters too much. As far as the rolling, no issues there. Everything rolls just as well as it should. Everything comes together nicely. So it's just as good as any other version of this mold. And here we get our group shot with all 4 of the mold mates to this guy. Of course, he had his most direct mold mate, Barricade, which I believe was the first to be released. Wasn't he? Or was it Prowl? One of these two. I forget which one was in which wave. Then, of course, we get Smokescreen, who utilizes the same head tooling as these two, but gets the long, like, blaster rifle. Then we get Prowl, who has his own head sculpt and drops the shoulder cannons. And then lastly, Bluestreak, who has Prowl's head, but the accessories from Smokescreen, and he was a little bit harder to get because he was a Walmart exclusive. Oh yeah, I should also point out that Smokescreen was actually a Selects toy, so he was also kind of hard to find. So here's the full ensemble. Again, no radical difference aside from just the very elaborate color scheme here. But depending on, you know, what parts you want to include on this guy, he can easily stand in for just a rusted up, beat up version of any of these vehicle modes. And even though he's supposed to be all junk-like and battle-worn, he's got one of the most elaborate paint applications compared to all these other guys. I'd say the only one that really comes close is maybe Smokescreen here. He's got quite a bit of paint on him. And here's our 360 shot of the vehicle mode, just so you can really kind of take it in, see it from every angle. Overall, you know, I'm pretty fond of this. I like the way the whole tampo detail or whatever method they used to put the rust on there. I like the way that came out. It's a really good way to put a lot of attention to detail to a junker car. But it is cool, right? It obviously took quite a bit of budget and effort compared to some other vehicle modes out there. And overall, I like the way this came out. It's just a neutral, beat-up car transformer. Okay, now we get the robot mode for our zombie bot here. And you can see, looks just like Barricade if he decided to, I don't know, hang out in seawater for a few centuries. And the color breakup here is kind of interesting, right? The car mode parts are really, for the most part, the only bits that have the rust on them. The big exceptions, you can see the head crest detail has some rust coloration, as well as the abdominal section. Then everything else is just some kind of shade of gray. Now, one thing that's kind of easy to miss because of like the big brow ridge, really neat detail, his eyes are done up with this metallic, dark purplish color, which is a really cool callback to the TV show where all of these zombie bots, these Sparkless, they were reanimated with, you know, this purple energy that's just glowing from their eyes, which is very similar to that of Dark Energon, though it was never explicitly said that that's what was powering them. But it's either a coincidence or just kind of a subtle nod to, you know, the Align continuity. Either way, it's a really cool little detail. Now, as far as tolerances, everything on this guy is nice and tight. In fact, his hips are a bit too tight. Again, might just be my copy. But these joints here, there's a lot of resistance, especially on the back and forth motion right here. Now, in of itself, not really a problem, right? That just means he's sturdy. However, you want to be careful, right? His knees and these whole shin pieces are clear plastic. They are prone to, you know, embrittlement and cracking, especially like where the pins go in. So when you're posing this guy, and especially when you're transforming him and you're trying to move the legs around, if you have this problem with the hips, don't be grabbing them here and try to like pull and move things because you're just going to put stress here. Take the time to actually grab like the thigh part here and manipulate these this way before you mess with the knees. You'll thank me for it when your guy's knee isn't, you know, shattering all over the place. So aside from that little oddity, which some people have pointed out that they're Wave 3 toys, so like this one, the Decius Army drone, the Clampdown, they seem to have all had their joints like made a little bit tighter. So maybe they did. Maybe they went back and just tightened them just to be safe so they weren't floppy. Not really sure. But what I can say is that, you know, he's just as solid of a figure as any of his mold mates, which is always a good thing, right? When you're 5 decos in at this point. Speaking of his mold mates, here they are again in their bot mode, so you can see how they all compare. Again, we got our 3 like-headed characters over here, and Prowl and Bluestreak off to the side. And even though this is just kind of yet another recolor of a heavily used mold, it just adds variety, right? Each one of these guys is very, very distinct in their color palettes. You got a black car, you got like bright red and blue racing car, police car, sleek dark silver luxury style car, and then you have the old junker. So that is one thing I do like about these. They're not being re-echoed for no good reason, which is something you can't say about all the toys that have been touched by Netflix, because a lot of them are just minor recolors of existing Siege and Earthrise molds. So there's usually not a huge incentive to pick up both versions of that toy. At least here, these are all separate characters. Now, of course, at this point, we've kind of all moved on to the Earthrise mold, right? If people are really chasing that G1 accuracy, they probably dumped these off and got the Earthrise ones. Which, if you've done that, or you never picked up the Siege versions in the first place and went straight to Earthrise, this just kind of makes this guy even more interesting, right? Because he's going to stand out more amongst your collection. And because they went through so much trouble differentiating this figure from all the different ones that came before it, I don't have a problem picking this up, right? It's something unique and interesting. It's an army builder, so you could buy a lot of them, along with the Sparkless Seeker if you'd like. It's kind of an obscure reference, right? Not a big name character, just kind of a generic. And it does something really creative with the color scheme. So I think it's well worth your while grabbing this guy, even if you have these other versions. I think he's just a very fun take on this mold. And of course, I've got to do the sadistic group shot with Moonracer. For everyone that's seen how, Season 1 of War for Cybertron ends, she meets her very grisly fate at the hands of Sparkless Bots like this one. Now, unlike some people I've seen, I'm not going to rip my Moonracer to pieces. I'm just not going to do that to the poor ball joints. So we're going to get a pre-feast shot of these two. And unlike the Netflix cartoon, she is not just a palette swap of Chromia, but gets to be her own mold. Which to this, day really just baffles me how little they used, with character models despite all the CAD files at their disposal. I mean, they literally just have to, copy and paste them from the CAD files and then, make, a moving skeleton to make the parts move. At the very least, if they're going to reuse Chromia's model, they could have at least redone the head, right? I mean, why did Moonracer just have to be greenish Chromia? I hated it. But that's a rant for another time. So yeah, if you're more of a sadistic bend, you could buy several of these guys and just kind of act out that scene of a character's second ever television appearance being cut woefully short. And this completes our look at the new Netflix Sparkless Bot. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with this. Yeah, I know it's a mold that's been done to death at this point, but like I said before, at least it's a creative use of the mold, right? We're not getting just some minor re-echo a la, Wave 1 and 2 of Netflix, which was just all the rage back then. We're getting something that's truly unique and interesting. I mean, how often do you get a zombie robot as a Transformer? I think last time I got that was, Dark Scorponok, technically? And even his zombie status is a little questionable. So I think this is really cool. It's not for everybody, I get that. It's a pretty deep cut, it's pretty obscure. Not everyone's just going to want some generic rusted robot. But I like it. I wish we had received more stuff like this from the get-go with Netflix. I get they want to have the main characters in their toy line because main characters sell, right? They want to showcase, your Sideswipe, your Red Alert. But as a collector, something like this is infinitely more interesting. And I would have loved to see more background characters, those random recolors of different guys. I think that would have just been way cooler. And we kind of started getting that here toward the end, which is, it's all great in my book. So, final thoughts. I'm very much pleased with this. I'm very interested in the whole idea of putting kind of non-traditional characters out there. I think this came out a lot better than the Sparkless Seeker, though I'll kind of reserve that judgment a little more for when I actually get that in hand. I just think it's more convincing as a zombie and not just a, dirty-looking Seeker. And, it is an army builder, it's a troop builder, so if you want to go nuts and there's enough available, have at it, I guess. Buy maybe 3-4 of them, recreate some scene with them, eating some good guys, bad guys, whatever you want to do. So, Yeah, I'm a big fan of this approach. It's a shame that the Netflix toy line, as far as we know, is done after this, because I would have loved to see them tap into some more, generics and more creative outlets. But, oh well, better late than never. Of course, that is just how I feel about this toy. Now I want to know what you all think of this new Sparkless Bot. Is this something that scratches an itch for you? Can you see yourself picking up one or more of these, or are you just not interested? Is it too obscure, too generic for you, or you just don't like the rust look? Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, make sure to hit the join button, and for as low as $1.99 a month, you can start enjoying special perks, including members-only Q&As, live streams, cool stuff like that. Thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Netflix Sparkless Bot. And with all that said, I will see you next time.